All right, girl. Making this for you for your hip flexors, and I hope this helps anyone else who's watching this one. All right, so we're gonna work on a couple things to help you with your hips. So I want you to start in downward facing dog, and then you're gonna lift a leg, bend the knee, and I want you to open the hip, and then you're gonna play with some hip circles. And you'll do 3 on each side, and you're opening, and I want you to get that mobility going. It's gonna help as we keep progressing. Then come forward in a lunge. And now you can use a block, and a block will help support you, but you're gonna come into a deep lunge, and I want you to bring your heel right underneath your knee and really sit into this one. You should feel this one in your hip and holding. And I like to bounce it. I think the bouncing feels really good. And you can play with your arms going up, bending your elbows, coming up, and then this subtle back bend is also going to help you get a little bit deeper. And then from here, hands down, you're going to sit back, hips over the knee, so going into a half split, working that hamstring a little bit. There's a lot of connection here. And then we're going to come forward, and I want you to bring your foot out to the side, coming into a runner's lunge. So you don't have to come down onto your forearms. You can stay up on your hands if that's too much, or you can use your block. You can come down onto your block. I'm gonna come down to the floor, and then really relaxing your head and neck so that you're not focusing any tension up in the head and you're getting it all down in your legs. You'll feel it in your low back, you'll feel it in your hips. And then from here, just simple, going into pigeon. Right, now this is where a block can come in really handy. And so if your hips are really tight, because we're working the front hip flexor here on my right, but I'm also getting into my hip and hamstring on my left. So this is too much. You take the block and you just put it underneath your glute, and you can sit up on this. And this is when we want you to play with going up and down. Right, so I'm gonna pull the block out because for me that's a better stretch. You're gonna come up, go back, and up, so you're building strength in your low back as well. And you'll feel your core turn on, and that's really key to having strong hips, is you want a strong back and core. And I'm gonna come back up into the lunge. So if you have a strap, use a strap. If you don't, just grab something that's similar. And then this is one of my favorites. Bring your foot into the strap. So I have it right around my ankle. You can see it there. And then my knee is gonna come over the ankle, so more towards the toes now. And this is a really, really good stretch for here. Now I'm gonna suggest you take your thumb, put your thumb in your low back and dig down. You'll lift up and just gentle with your head. And if that's too much on your head and neck, you can also take your hand behind your head and lift through your upper body, lift through your elbows, and just come back. Now we're not really worried about bringing the foot to the head. We're focusing on your hip flexor here. So just taking an inhale and then exhale, sinking your hips deeper to the floor. This is less about the back bend and more about the hip opening. And we're gonna switch, remove it, come back into downward facing dog. You'll lift now right leg, bend your knee so you're opening your hip. It's really important to keep your shoulders in line. And then we're gonna do 3 circles on each side again. And we'll do the other side. You're gonna step it forward and go back into that lunge. So knee right on top of your ankle. And you come into it. And again, you can come into that like gentle back bend. And I like this because as I come back and I slowly open in the low back, I can feel my hip opening up a little bit more. And then come back into half splits, hip on top of your knee, and then flex your toes back. Pull your toes back towards your face, and you'll relax here. And we'll come forward, walk your foot out, coming into runner's lunge. Use your block if you need it. I'm gonna go without the block. We're gonna just come down and really relax your neck. You don't want any focus in your neck and your head. You want it all down in your low back and your hips. And then really breathe deeply into it to get into it. We're gonna come back up. We're gonna walk your foot over, coming into pigeon. So opening up in that pigeon. You can use your block if you want to use your block. And we're going to do some back bending so that you can focus on strengthening your low back and your core. And so if this is too much, that's where the block comes in. Inhale, exhale, and you come up, inhale. One more inhale. I like threes. 3 is a helpful number for me. We're going to come back up, go back into your lunge, and this time knee is coming over your ankle. So you're reaching it towards your toes. Grab back onto your strap. Bring your foot into your strap to bring it down by your ankle. And you're going to bring the strap over your shoulder. Arm up, and you can bring it back behind your head, or you can take your thumb back into your low back. But regardless, your left elbow should be lifting up and drop your shoulder. So we're going to be opening the low back just gently here. Again, it's not so much about the back bend. Focusing more on getting our hips down. Now watch this knee. When knee wants to come this way, you want to keep it in. Keep your hips nice and steady. And then you can release. And then this is my favorite pose for hips. We're going to bring our knees out. Floor frog. So I'm going to go without any kind of props on this one. A couple things you can do though. If this is too much, you can grab a block, bring your forehead to a block. If this is really intense, you just take a pillow. But the key here to floor frog is your hips have to go back so they're in line with your knees. And then you should look back and your heels should be in line with your knees. You want these nice 90-degree angles. Relax your head. And then just notice, because your hips are going to want to come forward, that the farther back you get them, keeping that in alignment, it's going to really open them up. And so if this is too much and you're getting into it, just put a pillow underneath you, and it gets more into a restorative pose. But this is one of my favorite things for the hips. Now coming out of this one, you can stay in this a lot longer than I am. Bring your feet together, prop yourself up on your hands, and then pop your knees in. And that should help you with those hips.